The USA make another CONCACAF Nations League final. They were pushed all the way by Jamaica's Reggae Boys, who took the lead early, very early in fact, in the first minute. But an own goal by Corey Burke in the last minute of normal time sent the game in an extra time. And that's when Haji Wright, who wasn't even in the Nations League squad a couple of days ago, he took over to score a couple goals. And Team USA make it to the final on Sunday.
So close. Jamaica's Reggae Boys downed by reigning champions of the USA in extra time after some heart-stopping dramatics in their CONCACAF Nations League semi-final in Arlington, Texas on Thursday night. The Jamaicans, without several star players, were seconds away from toppling the Americans, but in the dying seconds of added time, they were undone by a Corey Burke own goal. The Americans then scored 2 more goals in extra time to seal the 3-1 victory. Reggae Boys boss Hal Grimson says he was pleased with the execution of his team.
Well, I thought the execution from the guys of this match, with given all the absentees we have, was brilliant. So tactically they were good. Defensively they were absolutely spot on. Attackingly, of course, that always needs more time when you have new players. So we knew that part would not be perfect, but I think we can fix keeping better possession, especially more brave and build up. We went too early for the long ball, but overall I felt more second half than first half. I felt really comfortable, even though the possession was US.
Head coach there, Hal Grimson, will joining us this afternoon to review the game is former Trinidad and Tobago defender and our Sportsmax lead striker, Brent Sancho. Good afternoon, Brent. How are you? I like saying that, I like that title, the Sportsmax lead striker.
I've never been called a striker in my entire life, so I'll take that any day.
Yeah, well, let's get down to business, of course, Brent. And, the Reggae Boys started so good. Everything seemed to be going really, really well. Time was, of course, extended to more than 90 minutes, and then the USA snatched it from us.
Yeah, unfortunate. Certainly was unfortunate. We all knew the situation coming into the game. Of course, a Reggae Boys team's depleted of many of their attacking stars that certainly carries that impetus for them, not part of the game. So it left a Reggae Boys team that really had to dig in, which they did. I did say in the show a couple of days ago they had to be resolute and strong defensively. They were. And really and truly, when they scored in about 31 seconds or so into the game, you felt that the Americans would come back, but they stifled them. They didn't. Although they had to, of course, ride their luck on a couple of occasions. Despite that, it really was a gutsy performance by the Reggae Boys. And as I said, it's really heartbreaking to obviously go out in the way they did. And as we said, the last kick of the game, the score changed, and that's the difference. But all in all, I'm sure Coach Hemrich, as he rightfully said, he's really proud of his boys and what they've been able to do. But of course, when you look at the bigger picture, Mariah, it does show some of the challenges that Jamaica has to obviously bear. And that is without that attacking three-prong that they have, they can look very ordinary. And that's a concern going into the Copa America, and that's a concern going into World Cup qualifiers.
Yeah, and it's something, of course, Coach Hyman and his entire team would have to look very closely at, seeing that, a lot of players were missing from this setup, a lot of the key players, Brent. So when you look at what he had to work with, I think, just like Coach said, I'm so proud of what the players were able to do with, the little time that they had to turn around everything. Would you say that after that Corey Burke own goal, the Jamaica Reggae Boys started to look like a different team? It's as if they got flustered, and of course the other 2 goals came right after.
Yeah, maybe the goal, but I think the goal was always coming. I think the introduction of Giorina in particular for the Americans completely turned the game on its head. A player that can find the pass, a player that is quite composed on the ball, and he brought some attacking rhythm to the Americans, and all of a sudden in a game that America looked void of ideas. They look like a real threat going forward. And truth be told, they came close on a couple of occasions to equalizing. So you just felt that that goal was always going to come, albeit, of course, it wasn't the last kick in the game. And of course, it was an own goal and a very unfortunate goal as well. But I think going into the extra time, I think the Americans was always in the ascendancy. They always looked like a team that had the ability. And look, you're talking about levels here. When you look at the type of players that the Americans brought off of the bench and went into the extra time period, compared to what Jamaica had coming off of the bench and going into the extra time period, you would think there would have only been one winner, and that's exactly what it panned out to be. Again, not taking anything away from what the Reggae Boys was able to do on the night. I just felt that the depth and quality that the Americans possess was the difference in the tie.
Yeah, Brent, I want to look more closely at that own goal by Corey Burke, and as a defender, you can probably assess exactly what happened there. But before I get there, can you talk about Hallgrimsson's post-match comments? Because he did provide some narrative which matches some of what you just said, that he accepted that offensively his team wasn't very strong, but that he accepted that going into the game, and the strategy was to be as much as they could contain the USA, which is how the game played out. If you look at the individual match performances by the Jamaican team, the goalkeeper and Damian Lowe, by most reviews, were the standout performances for Jamaica, soaking up a lot of pressure. So do you agree with Hallgrimsson then that given what they had on their roster, that they executed admirably?
I may say, Lance, that maybe they could have been a bit more brave in possession or possessing the football, being a bit more brave. It needed that. I think he alluded to that fact that he felt that they went a bit too direct too soon. And he's correct. I think when you're playing against teams like the US and teams of that ilk, you have to be brave on the football. You have to find the opportunities to string together 7 to 8 passes and keep possession, which is part and parcel of game management. And I think that lacked in the Jamaica game. It lacked even more in the second half because they went direct from would go. They did attempt a little bit in the first half, but I think in the second half, it left them. And if you looked at it from a technical point of view, I think the second half, because they didn't manage the game in the right way, which comes back to the fact of possessing the football and being a bit more brave, it really cost them at the end, because it really needed them to take this thing out of the game, take the rhythm out of the Americans by possessing the football, but they weren't able to do that.
Yeah, but isn't that true of the performance of these Reggae Boys for several years now, Brent? Because I know there's a lot of focus on the fact that they were missing Mikel Antonio and Demarai Gray and Leon Bailey. But even with those three, isn't there the general criticism that there is not enough playmaking enough in this Jamaican strategy, moving the ball around through midfielders and so on? So I'm not sure if identifying the absence of their most potent attacking players covers the issue as we review what happened last night.
I think the difference, Lance, is the likes of Antonio and Bailey and, of course, Gray. They do well at holding the ball up, which allows the midfield to eventually join into the play. And that's what they bring to the team. I agree with you. Midfield has been a problem for the Reggae Boys. And that, of course, playing in different phases in the game, moving from the defensive phase into the midfield, has been a challenge for Jamaica. We've identified that on this program many times. But I think what the front three brings is that capability of holding the ball up and allowing the midfield to join higher up the park. And that's why they're so important to this Jamaica team. And even the factor that they can create for their own. And when you have that sort of potency in your team, opposition teams now respect the fact, and they start dropping off a bit and giving you a bit more respect, which allows you to play a little bit more in the middle of the park. But if you keep hoisting the ball forward, like they did throughout the 90-plus minutes, against the US, that lack of respect came in and they decided to press higher up, which really and truly eroded any sort of possession game for the Jamaicans. But yes, I agree. Yes, you could look at the midfield as a struggle, but the front three does help the midfield possess the football.
Yeah, and Brent, quickly before we move on, I want you as a top-class central defender who understands setting up for set plays and defending corners, assess for us what happened with Corey Burke. I have some sympathy for him because I'm pretty sure he didn't sleep last night, given the weight of disappointment on his shoulders. if we look at the replay, there was a slight deflection from the shoulder or the head of the US defender, Miles Robinson. Would that have played a part in Corey Burke's body shape not being able to make an adjustment and prevent what happened? Because as it turns out, it looks as if he headed the ball straight into his own goal based on how he framed up. But is it possible that that slight deflection from Miles Robinson could have thrown him a bit?
Yeah, certainly the deflection thrown him off. But one of the things that you're told when you're defending, especially defending late, is that you don't want bodies in the box doing nothing, and that's what happened to Jamaica. There were one or two yellow shirts that were standing in the box, not marking, not there, not doing anything. Of course, they want to help the team. Of course, they want to make sure that they get the result over the line. But sometimes when the box is that busy, that sort of situation happens. And maybe Corey Book should not have been where he was. Probably could have been on top of the box. Because when you look at it, there are at least 6 yellow shirts in and around before the deflection. And once that happens, the finger pointing started, you have it, no, I have it. And that's the sort of situation. I think structurally for that corner in particular, there were just too many yellow shirts doing anything. And if you look at the replay, you could see at least 2 or 3 not even picking up a shirt, just there and thereabouts, thinking that they're helping, but in fact, they're making the situation even more difficult.
Yeah, Brent, of course, a really heartbreaking result, and we'll be talking about it for some time, of course. But, the Jamaica Reggae Boys would want to put that behind them because, of course, they have another match that's very, very important, and they would want to, of course, win that one. We're going to move along now to Mexico versus Panama. Many people predicted a Mexico win, not too sure about the clean sheet. What did you think about that performance?
Yeah, look, these two teams have met a couple of times before. It's been very tight, a 1-0 affair. But boy, oh boy, I tell you, the Mexico team played some fantastic stuff. And they look like, especially in the backdrops of the way the Americans play, they look like genuine favorites. Panama is a team that has been up and coming. I think they've even passed that phase of being an up and coming CONCACAF team. They are here, and they are genuine CONCACAF giant now. And they give as good as they get. And as much as a team that enjoys pressing high, enjoys playing through phases and have good things about them, they look toothless against the Mexicans. And truth be told, a lot of it is down to the way the Mexicans play.
Yeah, and I feel as if, in the first half, the job was done for Mexico because those 2 goals that came in the first half, and of course in the second half, Brent, they wanted to ensure that they left no stone unturned, so that 3rd goal coming in the second half. And they looked as if, they were just eager to get it over and done with.
It's remarkable. I think it's a year or probably a little bit under a year. There were so many question marks around this Mexican team, coach changes, poor results. They lost to America in the Nations League final. There was a lot of questions. Now you look at this Mexican team, and you have to say it's one of the best Mexican teams we've seen for quite some time in the way that they've been performing. And you just wonder that how quickly things could change for Mexico because, as I said, they were a team that a lot thought were over the hill, have lost their way. And I know in Mexico, there were all sorts of crisis talks and crisis managements going on. But now they look like a well-drilled oil machine, a team that we know can compete, of course, with the best in the world. And it would be really interesting to see how this Mexican team does in the Copa America because it's a team that normally does well against South American opponents.
Yeah, and it'd be very interesting, Brent, to see how this Mexico team does against USA because they've set themselves up a final against the USA. And based on the errors, and I think the USA team that I saw against Jamaica had a lot of errors and a lot of areas to improve in. So this Mexico team that we saw against Panama versus that USA team that we saw against Jamaica, what type of football are we to expect?
Well, if the Americans play the same pedestrian way that they did in the first half against the Mexican, it'll be lights out by 45 minutes in the first half because the way the Mexicans move the football and the pace and velocity in which they're attacking, it will only be one winner. Now, this is America, and we all know they will find an extra gear. This is the ultimate enemy in the Mexicans as it relates to rivalry in football. And this is an opportunity to pull yet another one over the Mexicans in the Nations League final. So I do expect the Americans to improve their performance coming into this fixture. But as well, Mexico has a lot to play for. They certainly will have revenge in their mind. They're certainly a team in form, and they would feel that this is the opportune time to get that result they've been dying to get for quite a while against the Americans and set them up for pretty good Copa America.
Yeah, and Brent, you know, one of the matches I'm eager, but still very, very nervous about. The same feeling I had yesterday when Jamaica was getting ready to play USA, Trinidad and Tobago up against Canada. What are we to expect from this mouth-watering matchup?
It's going to be a tough one for Trinidad and Tobago, in particular with the type of personnel that the Canadians have brought into this team. Of course, Alphonso Davies leading a long line of superstars that the Canadians have been able to bring in. They've had their challenges. The Canadians, of course, they have not hit the heights that they did maintain or attain when they were qualifying for the World Cup, of course, winning the qualification stage and moving on to the World Cup. But since the World Cup, it has been all downhill for them. But you just feel, Mariah, that this Canadian team is due a performance, and they may be looking at the fixture on Saturday as that time, the right time to have that performance. And of course, they lost to Jamaica in Canada. Truth be told, of course, they created a number of opportunities. They came up against Superman Blake in goal, and they would probably suggest that that's one of the reasons why they didn't do well. So if they play around that same sort of tempo and of course that same sort of purpose, they would feel that they have every opportunity to beat Trinidad and Tobago.
I'm going to ask you for a prediction, and I'm hoping the prediction is what I want you to predict. But before that, what type of surprises or what can we expect from Coach Ankasiv?
He's been quite good in setting his team up in terms of playing in transition. They have the speed and the flair and all the guile in the world to create something. In Levi Garcia, you have a genuine match winner. I think the biggest challenge to Ankasiv is defensively. He just doesn't know what defensive team will show up. As I would have pointed out before, this is a team that had some good defensive displays throughout, but they have given up a lot of goals throughout their tenure in the Nations League Group A. They can't afford to do that against Canada. They would have to almost get a clean sheet if they have to have any chance of getting a result in this game. I don't think, Mariah, they're capable of doing that, and I think that's why I feel the Canadians are the favourites and may just go on to win this one.
Yeah, and Brent, if you look at Angus Eve's trajectory with this Trinidad and Tobago team, he's been in building mode for the past year since his contract was renewed and so on. And I know there was a victory over the USA back in November, and earlier on they had victories over Guatemala and El Salvador. Do you see this TNT team being a team that's on the improve and sort of recovering some of its potency in CONCACAF football? And with that, it wouldn't be impossible for them to upset Canada.
I think what he's brought back is pride. He's brought back the team play with a bit of grit, a bit of pride, a bit of purpose. We haven't seen that for quite some time in Trinidad and Tobago. We've seen a lot of lackluster performances, a lot of disappointing performances. He's brought that. Lance, I think where it is lacking is genuine quality. And I'm not just talking quality when you have the football, but I think quality when they don't have the football. Some of the decision making, some of the whether to tackle, whether to stay, whether to go, that has not been 100% good. And that is why they've gotten results, but when you look at the results and you start pulling it apart, you would see defensive lapses, you would see giving up goals, you would see letting teams back into it. As I said, they do have one or two players, well, one in particular, Levi Garcia, who has the quality, but the rest of the group, whether or not they have that quality to do it for 90 plus minutes is where the question marks are. But as you said, the team is showing positive signs upwards because we are seeing the grit and passion that we lost for some time. But that little nugget of quality is certainly missing. And it's an important nugget to have when you're playing this level of football.
Yeah, I know that Levi Garcia is a high-quality attacking player. I have a lot of respect for his ability. I think he's in the top 2 or 3 scorers at the moment in the Greece Super League, playing for AEK Athens. But is it that you're concerned that he may not have the kind of service and passes coming through from midfield to make his job easier or making his scoring opportunities more prolific.
Yeah, and that is exactly my concern. And what we've seen in the games that he's taken part of with Trinidad and Tobago, that he started to drop deeper and deeper to try to get the ball. He's fabulous once he's close, maybe 30, 40 yards away from goal. He can turn the magic on. He can do things terrific. He can create his own opportunities. That's fine. But when he goes searching for the ball deep into his own half, that's where the problem is. And you're right. The challenge is, can the Trinidad and Tobago midfield get the ball to Levi Garcia in the sorts of opportunities that he thrives on? I just don't believe that can happen. We struggle in moving the ball from defense to the middle of the park and then getting it to Levi Garcia. So the fact that we've not been able to get it to the midfield certainly means that we won't be able to get it to Levi. And I think that is the challenge. He's not the type of player like a Mikel Antonio that can take long services direct to him. He's not a tremendously tall individual. However, if he gets it in the right areas, as I said, he can be dangerous. But the question is, can they do it? They have not been able to do it so far, but can they do it tomorrow night? I guess we'll have to watch and see.
I know, Brent, but you don't get away with the predictions. So before we go, with the few seconds we have left, to call it, former Soca Warrior.
There's the heart in me that says 2-1 Trinidad, but the reality in my mind, it probably will be 2-0 to Canada.
All right, Brent. Well, we'll talk again after the results. Have a beautiful Friday. Talk soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.
Brent Sancho there, our Sportsmax analyst and, of course, former Soca Warrior. We take a quick break. We'll be right back.